Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Oh, we are assembled. The WacArnold's brothers are back. Episode 59. Bowie's guest starring. Kind of.
Bowie.
he says, hello. He's like smelling something right now. Yeah,
How
as
old
always.
is he now?
He is a little over 2 now. He'll be 3 in the April.
Okay, okay.
It's crazy how fast they grow, you know?
Right.
Like, not that he's getting any bigger per se, but I think about it all the time where it's, you know, with pups, you only have a finite amount of time with them. And it's a damn shame that I always hope that Bowie will be the first dog to live to 80, you know? That'd be awesome. If we could both be old guys together.
He's so damn cute. It's just insane.
I know. You know, the way he some people don't like having a really needy dog, but when I get home, one of the best things in the world is that I see him sitting on top of the couch and his tail just starts going whap, 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 whap against the couch. And then I'll just find a place to plop down and he just comes hopping right over and just like he sits on my chest and like lets me hold him in my arms like a little baby while I like give him kisses and like pets and stuff. And I don't know, man. There's just something about it that just immediately, no matter how shitty your day's been, just like fucking warms you right up, man.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's why there's But we're not talking about dogs today. We're talking about a really, 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 really awful. It's the 8th entry in the main line of the Amityville franchise, and it's actually the last movie in the series until they did the reboot in 2005.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what else is interesting?
What?
So you know how like people always knock on Troll 2 because there's not any trolls in it?
Yeah.
The word Amityville is not said in this movie a single time. So it's almost like it could like the only connection it has is that the Dollhouse looks like the Amityville house. Otherwise, there's no connection. It could literally be any movie. You know what I mean?
God, yeah, it could just as easily be like just a haunted house, movie. That's fucking crazy. I didn't even think about that while watching through. You're right. Like, there's no mention of it of the connection.
It feels like, and I've said this before about horror, where it feels like it was like a completely different movie, and then they just like were like, oh well, we could like make this Dollhouse look like the Amityville house. So it could be an Amityville movie.
It's true, man. Like, I mean, this, I feel like is kind of one of those prime times before they started rebooting all the classic franchises. This was like one of those times in horror movie history where and we talked about it throughout the 90s. There's just so many attempts at sequels. And I think you're right, where it's just like people were just leeching on to like the famous names of things, trying to like get that last squeeze of horror fan cash out of it.
Yeah. But yeah, we're just so obviously you can tell by the title, but we're reviewing Amityville Dollhouse, and I'm gonna say a really corny, but it's more like Amityville Dollhouse because it's pretty bad. Oh, there's also God. Like how like sometimes we'll watch a movie and like we'll see a face that we've seen in horror before. There's no one in this movie that you recognize. The only person that I recognized was the girl that plays Dana, because she played Lori Foreman in that 70s show.
Oh shit! You're fucking right, dude.
But that's it. There's no like man, there's not even a Dick Miller or
There's nothing.
There's nothing.
Just devoid of any true, like, you know, horror cultism. Like, this movie does not. This movie was like, it was just dry. Like, it felt like you kept thinking like it's gonna step up at some point. It's gonna happen, but like it's as corny as they come, and especially with the Amityville name attached to it.
Right.
You do expect something, like,
right.
And
Just the fact that there was like only one actual death scene, and it didn't happen until like the last 3 minutes of the movie. It was like, oh my god,
just ridiculous.
It just, like you said, I don't know. It just, like, it seemed like it used a lot of I don't know. It's pretty lame, but I will say this: there are two things that I liked about the movie. So the character of Jimmy, he starts out as a little shit. You know, he's one of those characters in the movie that they portray him as like kind of nerdy. So he has all, you know, he thinks that he's like smarter than everybody. He's kind of a little dick at first. Not only is he a dick to his older stepbrother, but he's really disrespectful to his stepdad. But there is one thing, one of the things I like the most about this movie is the whole plot point centered around his dad that we, you know, only learned through a picture, was in the military and died at some point. But I really like because there's at one point his zombie dad comes back, and at first he's really, really happy to see him. You know what I mean? Obviously, when you're a kid, you know, it made me think about losing my mom and how for so many years after that, I was like, man, I would kill for just like one more day with her. So I really felt that we're like, you know, the first time he sees his zombie dad, he's really happy. But then as it makes more and more appearances, it gets more and more grotesque, which is really cool too. But it just was a really cool way of dealing with that grief and trauma. So that was one thing I really liked about the movie. But unfortunately, nothing about the horror did I really like about this movie. It's pretty tame.
Yeah. There was one scene that definitely, like, that I really appreciated, and I mean, it's one we'll come to eventually, but
yeah, you'll have to say the scene you're talking about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but you're right, like, you know, it's just, I don't know, like, other than that, like, aspect, and I agree with you, that's a really interesting aspect that they build into that character, and they kind of, you know, follow through all the way to the end, but it's like, yeah, other than that, like, a lot of the characters you just don't feel much attachment for. No,
not at all.
Yeah. It's bizarre. But
speaking of characters, you know, the movie pretty much opens, you know, the opening credits is like we get like a almost a 360. It's like more like a 180 view. We get like a front view of this like dollhouse. It spins around to the side so you can see the iconic mirrors of the Amityville house. And then it has like interior shots of this dollhouse as the credits are rolling. But then very quickly, we get introduced to essentially all of the main characters as they roll up to their new house. And we have Bill and his wife, Claire. Bill has two children from his first marriage, Jessica and Todd, and Claire has her own son named Jimmy. And they all roll up to this new house that Bill, we learn, built himself, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. It's like, you know, impressive feat. Everybody seems to give him shit about it at some point throughout the movie, though. You know, like,
right.
Like, yeah, like, great work on the electricity and shit. You know, like, it's like, fuck off, everybody. Did you build this house at all? I don't think so. Poor Bill.
But yeah, because it's established pretty quick. You know what I mean? That Jimmy, Claire's son, doesn't necessarily like Bill. And him and Todd don't seem to get along either.
No.
But yeah, you know, kind of
Todd's a classic, like, good-looking, muscular, like, I guess popular person, although they allude to the fact that he used to get in a lot of trouble.
Right.
But yeah, him and Jimmy just well, it's like weird because like that scene you're talking about where they roll up to the house and they get introduced, you introduce all the characters. There's that quick moment with Jimmy and his mom and Bill where she's like, you can call him dad or whatever, and she's like, and Jimmy's like, something, all right, Bill, and like makes that point. And then Todd, like right after that, immediately has a bad interaction with Jimmy in his room where like he doesn't make fun of his arachnophobia, but he's just sort of like, dude, you're a fucking wuss.
Yeah, well, because I think he makes fun of the fact that Jimmy has a mouse named Max.
Yeah,
but,
that's
Jimmy.
right.
Jimmy's like, it's happened in a bunch of horror movies or just movies in general. Jimmy's like this like stereotypical like nerd kid that uses it like every now and then to like further drive home the point that he's a nerd. He says some big smart word or mocks like the intelligence of the other characters. You know what I mean? There's like one line where he's like talking to the mouse and he's like, I think you might be smarter than everyone in this house or something like this. Like,
yeah, exactly.
He's a fucking little shit at first.
He is kind of a little shit. Yeah, that's right. He calls Todd it's like subspecies.
That's what I'm saying.
Like a little fuck. Oh my god, dude.
But Todd does call him like a wimp and a dweeb and you know what I mean? 90s lingo.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he says a line. He says, once a geek, always a geek. That's what he says to Bill, because like they end up going outside and have like a quick like little toss of the football. And this leads them to a nearby shed that apparently was there from the past. And, we kind of learn more about that in a little bit. While they're in this shed, though, Todd's girlfriend, Dana, shows up, and she just got her driver's license. So they head off together while Bill heads in to check out the shed and see what's inside.
Yeah, man. There's something about creepy old sheds. You never know what you're gonna find, but that is something. I mean, Bill finds like that. Well, at first, like it's kind of strange because he like goes in there and he's like hears like a voice and it says something like it says like like you're gonna burn.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's like this like really this like whispery kind of voice.
I didn't. Okay.
But then it's like, one of the next shots you see of him is like his nose is bleeding and like just randomly. But, still he goes and explores further into the shed. Yeah,
there's like pretty much there's just a bunch of like old tools, really not much of note. But there does seem to be something under like a tarp.
Yeah.
What does he find under that tarp?
Well, and that's the he discovers the dollhouse that we saw from the credit sequence, the replica of the Amityville house,
which is actually pretty fucking cool.
It is. I was just gonna say that, dude. I was like, that's a pretty impressive fucking dollhouse. But he decides to like bring it inside and
into the garage. Into
the garage,
right.
And he uses it from kind of.
We also when he picks up the dollhouse, we get a real quick glimpse of like a newspaper clipping that happens to be pinned to the wall, and the newspaper clipping headline says "Family burns in house fire." So you're kind of like, I wonder what that's all about.
Yeah.
But yeah, while he brings it in to the garage, and while he's also in the garage, we see that there's like a little girl's bike with a bow on it. So you're like assuming that maybe it's his daughter Jessica's birthday soon. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then, like kind of quickly off of that, you have a little scene where it's, Bill and Jessica, and they're sort of discussing, she's all just, like, I don't want to move anywhere anymore. And he just kind of reassures her that this is their home now. Like,
yeah, which I get, I moved twice when I was a kid, because my parents were in the Navy, but, I've met other people that have had to move moved 6 different times or whatever. And like, yeah, man, if you're a young kid, like, you know what I mean? That's pretty a jarring thing to go through. So
Yeah. No,
I can understand her trepidation, you know what I mean? About, you know, it's like, are we going to be moving again or you know? Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah, we also, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say. Then we have another like kind of like it's like kind of interesting because you go from Jessica and Bill, then you go to you know, Jimmy and his mom.
Yeah, Claire.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, in a way, it's like, you know, Jimmy's, you know, they're kind of talk. You see like the photo. This is what you were talking about earlier. You see the photo of Jimmy's dad. Who's passed, and you know he's in his like Air Force, you know, or his like fighter pilot suit. It looks like, or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I think he was.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah.
You know, and the dog tags attached to it, so you know he's passed and everything. And
I just think it's funny that they've only been there for like 4 hours. Like they haven't even been there for a whole, not even a day or a week. And Jimmy's already like, I hate it here.
Yeah, he ain't giving it a fucking chance at all. Jimmy, come on. But then something weird happens at night. So like everybody you know, is like settling down for the evening, and you get this like crazy shot of the dollhouse. Like a light pops on in the dollhouse, and then some smoke starts coming out of the chimney, and there's nobody around it, you know.
Yeah. Again, the coolest parts about this movie have to do with the dollhouse, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. Yeah, this like lamp just clicks on the chimney, starts smoking. I'll give it that. Anything having to do with the dollhouse in this movie is probably the best part about the movie. No. But what happens after like the smoke in the dollhouse starts coming out of the chimney?
Well, then they like, because it's like there's that, and then like it's like, you know, Bill and Claire kind of you know, shows them in bed, and they're both all like, you know, both of them are like really sweaty, and so Bill gets up and starts like, you know, wandering about the house
because the fireplace turned on by itself.
Yeah, and it's just been roaring, so it's causing all this heat build up. You know what I mean?
There's also this funny part where he's like going to head downstairs and like thinks he sees someone standing at the bottom of the stairs, and like grabs a flashlight and a bat and goes down, and turns out it was a pair of boots.
Yeah, a pair of boots. Dude, classic Psych Out. Like,
yeah, true.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, it is strange that the fucking fireplace just, you know, flips on. But Bill, like, you know, he just like sort of sits down in front of the fireplace, and he starts hearing like, you know, voices like, please help me. And then he sees, you know, his Jessica like in the fire, basically in the back of the fireplace or whatever. And like, you know, there's a shot of him like reaching into the fire, and then he wakes up and like snaps out of it, and he's just been like on the couch or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And Claire's down there being like, yo, what the fuck? Like, open some windows, it's fucking hot in here.
Yeah, she's like, I thought you were gonna fix the air conditioning, and he talks about how there's a broken circuit breaker, but like literally like a second after he says that, the AC seems to kick on by itself. So you're kind of like, Yeah. And then furthering off that, we pop back to the garage, and the truck turns on by itself and runs over the bike to where it was like, which is interesting because I didn't think about this at the time, but it's almost like the house, the dollhouse did that on purpose, you know, to ruin this girl's birthday present in the hopes that they would gift her the dollhouse. And that's actually what ends up happening quite shortly after that. But yeah. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, there's just a shot of the truck turning on and like lurching forward and running over this bike. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it is kind of like it's like a random but like interesting scene, because you're right, like thinking that the dollhouse is like making moves to sort of ensure that it's the prize of the day, you know, in a way. But then you kind of have like the next morning brief scene where Jessica's on the phone with, I believe, their mother in New York or something like that.
Right.
And you got a couple like. You get Todd calls her a spaz a couple of times in this scene because she like doesn't give him the phone to talk to her either. But then like it like Claire turns to Todd at one point in this scene and is like, hey, I got a pinata that needs to be filled out, for the birthday party. And then immediately, like, the kitchen pan, like, bursts into flames, and, like, there's, it, like, kind of shows the fire on the gas stove, flickering and then kind of dying back down. It's sort of interesting, man. It's all fire play. But, you know, the pinata thing kind of plays right into the next sort of sequence you have, because you're sort of, at the birthday party. Jimmy's what?
Well, real quick, this is what I'm talking about, where Bill goes into the garage and notices that the bike is destroyed.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he seems to think that he may have left the parking brake on. And Claire's like, "What are we gonna do? The party's in an hour." And she's the one that's like, "Hey, we should just give her this dollhouse." So there's like a quick scene of Bill like using an air hose to clean it off, and then we jump to it's birthday party time.
Right.
They're playing pin the tail on the donkey at first. Him and Todd trade some more insults, and then we have the other two characters of this movie roll up on a motorcycle.
It's so funny. It's like this sequence of like Jimmy seeing them rolling up, and like, you like, honestly, it's just sort of like, you don't know who these people are yet either as a viewer, but then you find out it's like the aunt and uncle. It's like their aunt and uncle. You know what I mean? Yeah. And one of
Marla and Tobias are their names.
And Tobias is a big burly dude, all black, biker looking motherfucker, but he also like is mysterious, we'll say, in some ways. He has this like Miyagi-esque moment where he snatches like a fucking insect out of the air.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just ridiculous. But like, it kind of continues on into the party, and then you have the big moment where Jessica unveils her present. It unveils the dollhouse. And immediately fucking loves it. Yeah,
rightfully so. Yeah, she also finds like a little box in there and opens it, and there's like 7 little miniature dolls in them, but they don't necessarily look like dolls that would be in a dollhouse. They kind of look like miniature voodoo dolls in a way. They're just made out of white cloth. There's red. The stitching for the eyes is red. And when those get seen, like Marla and Tobias kind of have like an uneasy look on their face. But yeah, like you said, Jessica instantly is like, "I love it." And I mean, that's, I feel like any girl her age would have had the same response.
Oh yeah. But there's this interesting moment where like the fireplace in the dollhouse kind of smolders, and there's like a bunch of smoke, and it makes Jessica cough. Claire is like, "I thought you cleaned it," and
Jesus
so
Christ.
It's just interesting. But coming off of that, you have sort of a moment where it's like you see Todd. He's filling the pinata, and he puts a fake, like a rubber, very fake looking spider toy in there or whatever. To mess with Jimmy. And then it kind of cuts to the pinata smashing. Todd offers Jimmy a go at that, and it doesn't go as well. It doesn't go very well for Jimmy, because he bashes the fucker open, and out pops a real life tarantula. Like, boom.
Just wham right on his face.
Yeah, dude, nightmare. That would be a fucking nightmare.
Even if you weren't, didn't have arachnophobia, that would.
Dude. It'd be
I love his reaction though. He picks up a fucking baseball bat and just takes like a Mark McGuire swing at Todd's leg. It's great. Which again, it's a fair reaction.
Oh yeah. But it is funny because like he knocks he finally gets the spider off him. Tobias walks up and just smashes it with his boot and like scrapes it off the fucking porch. which I always think is like, you know, like with tarantulas, because that's what it is. Like it looks like a big old tarantula.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. It's got to be a weird sensation smashing something like a big tarantula with your boot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it definitely doesn't like you know, fit the party vibes. This whole sequence.
And obviously Todd, you know, seems kind of like shocked by it too, and he tries to explain to his dad that he put a fake spider in there, but Bill doesn't want to hear it, and Bill goes as far to tell him he's grounded for 3 weeks.
Yeah, dude. And
then we see Jessica is in her aunt's lap and talking about how she's not feeling very well. She feels sick.
Yeah.
What a shitty thing to have happen on your birthday.
Dude, for real. And then, you know, so the next, and then it kind of takes you right into like, you know, continuing right off of that, like you see the dollhouse has been moved up to Jessica's room. And she's just laying on her bed, you know, still feeling sick. Marla's like, you know, she's unbalanced.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
Fucking empath over here or whatever. But yeah, and you know, like you can kind of tell, like, because Marla takes there's like that whole moment where she almost like she has this weird like like almost collapses while she's like standing by the dollhouse.
Yeah.
You know, so there's definitely some weird energy in the room.
Yes, totally. And then her and Bill kind of have an interesting conversation. Like she goes to leave, and she mentions that she's going to bring by some special tea.
Yeah.
She names off some like herbs and stuff that's going to be in it, but I forget exactly what she says. But her and Bill have a conversation, and Bill tells her that he's having the dreams again, which you kind of learn more about in a little bit. And then they sort of reminisce about childhood. And then we actually follow up with Marla and Tobias some more. They seem to own some sort of bookstore called the Golden Raven bookstore, and it kind of looks kind of like a sort of like a Wiccan type place. You know, there's like witchcraft books, voodoo books. And she talks about getting strange vibrations from the dollhouse, and she asks Tobias if he felt it, and he has a great line. He said, "Yeah, like a nail through my forehead." So yeah, they're kind of made to seem like they have some sort of spiritual thing going on, you know, or you know, they can sense the evil presence in the dollhouse already.
Yeah. So. They're definitely in tune to the paranormal, we'll say.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and you know, things continue to kind of be strange at the house. Like, it's like right after that, you know, you have like shots of it's actually a really wild occurrence. So it's like Todd and Bill are Bill's trying to talk to Todd about, you know, like basically the afternoon. Like they kind of get into sort of like an argument almost, and this whole time Jessica's like, you know, shows shots of Jessica like on her bed being like, stop it or whatever. And then then this is kind of cool though. Like the dollhouse, like you see a window open on the dollhouse, and then the window in Todd's room just like flies open, and like a fucking whirlwind of like dust and leaves starts kicking up. And it's just crazy because, you know, like you're starting to realize that this dollhouse is really like has some sort of like a control. But then you also see like Bill turns around after he kind of gets it under control, the window situation, and he has like, you know, his nose has been bleeding again.
So here's the thing, I thought that was cool, but then it never happens again in the whole movie. So it happens those first 2 times where you're like, like what's the deal with these nosebleeds? And then it's just completely like forgotten about after this. It doesn't happen again. So you're kind of like, well, what the fuck was even the point? Like, I thought it was going to be something where, you know, it's just, there's just no payoff to it. It's kind of random.
That's a good point, man. Like, it's just like, where like what was the point of including that if you're not gonna like, you know, like further that like weird element?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
yeah.
And then not only that, not only does, you know, the window on the dollhouse open, causing the window in his room to rip open, but then the dollhouse, because Bill's struggling trying to close the window and he can't even get it to budge. But then in the dollhouse, you see the window close by itself, and Jessica's like, "How did you do that?" And then the window closes itself. So yeah, it just further establishes that, you know,
it's just got some weird powers, you know. And like, I mean, even further, like right into the next scene, it's like you get like double whammy, like it seems like a harmless scene, you know. Jimmy is like playing with his mouse Max, right?
Yeah.
And you know, he's like running it through like a little maze, and his mom Claire comes in, says goodnight basically, and then Jimmy realizes Max is gone, and then you have the sequence where you follow the mouse or, you know, into the dollhouse.
Yeah.
And then it immediately like transfers into like there's this giant rat tail sticking out of underneath Jessica's bed, and it starts moving her bed and shit, like it's like there's a giant fucking rat under there.
Yeah, because the rat crawls up into the dollhouse and climbs under a bed in the dollhouse. Yeah, you're like, holy fuck, what's going on?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, Todd ends up running in and you know, looks under the bed, because by the time he comes in, there's not a tail visible anymore. But he looks under the bed, and you see these like two gigantic red eyes start to approach him, and it ends up freaking him out. He kind of like teeters backwards and smashes into the dollhouse, causing the dollhouse to fall over. At the same time that Bill and Claire come in, turn the light out, and the activity seems to stop at that point.
Yeah, it's just like such an interesting sequence, you know, because it's like, you know, just like all like, I don't know, just enlarging the fucking rat like that.
It's pretty cool. Actually,
it would have been it would have been really cool to see like a full body, you know.
Totally.
Like, but then, you know, like the other thing about this scene is that like Max, I can't like, ends up getting fucking like smashed. Like,
well, yeah, because you just see his dead body in the dollhouse, but you don't know, you know what I mean? It's in a totally, completely different place due to the dollhouse getting smacked, getting you know, Todd crashing into it and knocking it over. But yeah, you're like, whoa, you know. And Jimmy obviously, you know, is upset and freaking out and trying to blame Todd, that Todd did it on purpose, and that he knows, you know, basically he thinks that Todd did it on purpose and is very, very upset.
Yeah. You know, like it's kind of interesting because you have this brief scene where like right after that, like Jessica and Todd, they kind of confirm that they both saw something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then you have this like shot of the dollhouse producing some sort of weird like queso looking goo.
Yeah, it just starts like dripping under one of the doors. It's really weird.
It's strange. It's like, ooh,
some sort of brown ooze. Yeah. Starts seeping out of the attic door. Yeah, it's a little weird. He also like looks back under the bed and finds like a toy robot.
Yeah, so you're meant to believe that that's really what he saw.
Yeah, and then Bill, you know, Bill tries to go talk to Jimmy. Jimmy talks about how he hates it here, and it's another scene where Bill, you know, he's just trying to, you know, sort of be there for this kid, sort of, you know, try to maybe like start to establish a relationship with him. But he asks Jimmy what he could do to make it better. And Jimmy flat out says, "I want you to leave me alone. That's what I want."
Yeah.
You're like, damn.
Yeah. It's pretty harsh. But like Bill does a smart thing, and I think he doesn't push it. He's sort of just like, all right, man, like I'll give you your space, which is good. But yeah, I mean, but as Bill exits the room, then you get this great entrance from Jimmy's deceased father.
Yeah, zombie dad.
Zombie dad's right behind the door.
Yeah, but he kind of looks. He doesn't look like he's like a rotting, desiccating corpse or anything. That he kind of just looks a little weird here.
Yeah.
But yeah, and obviously, Jimmy is happy to see him. He talks about how he misses him, about how he hates his life here, and that Bill is the biggest loser of them all. And Zombie Dad, tells Jimmy that they got to keep this a secret, and that they're going to make plans about what to do with Bill, which is very, very ominous.
Yeah. It's like, what the fuck does that mean, Zombie Dad?
And then he just walks into the closet and disappears, and you're like, what the fuck? Because like you said, it's like, the moment this dollhouse got introduced, all of these occurrences started happening.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, what's going on here? You know what
exactly.
I mean? And like I said, the Zombie Dad is my favorite part of this movie, and we'll talk more about it in a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Hey, hold on 1 second. I gotta take a leak. I'll just edit this.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
But yeah.
Accomplished.
So the first Zombie Dad sequence happens, and then we kind of follow up with Bill and Claire. They're cuddling in bed. Then we have a quick scene of Jessica. She's kind of in her room, like apprehensively staring at the dollhouse. But then, of course, it being a 90s movie, Bill and Claire start fucking.
Dude, they're getting hot and heavy. They're moaning, they're groaning, they're feeling each other,
But then it takes such a weird turn.
Oh, dude, this is like the weirdest aspect of this movie, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, they're like we said, they're moving and grooving, man. They're laying into each other. But then there's this shot where, like, you see Claire, and she just is like she just looks over at this like photo of a shirtless Todd.
Which is such a weird picture to have of your son.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. But further on top of that, like she's not looking away. And in fact, the photo seems to start like getting closer. It's like at first like a torso shot of Todd, and then it's like, his face is like a little bigger, and then like all of a sudden the shot is like his whole face in the frame, and
yeah.
Then you kind of are led to believe that basically like right as she like climaxes, she's like scratches up like Bill's back and like and like gets off by like this combination of
because she doesn't take her eyes off that picture and doesn't appear to blink.
No.
And like you said, she has, as she climaxes, literally word for word what I was going to say if I was describing that scene.
It's
she
wild.
just. It is.
It's so weird, man.
It even goes a little further here, where she goes to the kitchen, and Todd comes down and goes to get something from the fridge and accidentally brushes her, and she's sort of like rude to him, but you can tell that it's just weird. It is like the weirdest aspect of this movie.
It's weird because like the way she reacts to him, like kind of like brushing her is like. At first she's sort of like, like, oh, and then she like is just like, yo, get the fuck away from me.
Right.
Like I'm using the fridge, motherfucker. It's like, yeah. So like I don't know. It's just she's vibing on something fucking weird. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they have this like weird interaction in the kitchen at night, and then it's sort of, you get this
because she ends up leaving and presumably heading back up to bed, and then you hear like a knock on the door,
and Dana, the girlfriend, shows up again.
Yeah, because Todd goes to investigate, and he turns on the porch light, opens the door, and there's a bottle of booze And then Dana jumps out and jump scares him, wearing like kind of like similar to like the mask, one of the masks in the first Purge movie that like the main antagonist is wearing, but it's like kind of like almost like a clear mask essentially. But they instantly start making out, and they decide to, Todd obviously is like, well, my parents are sleeping upstairs and he's grounded. So they decide to head out to the shed for a little hanky panky.
Oh yeah. Classic hanky panky shed. they do, like, they're macking, they're going hard, smoking stogs and making out, and then there's this brief moment where they find this, like, I don't know, looks like a giant wasp or something, like in a glass case. They make a comment about how big it is. That's a whole lot of bug to love. It was like so weird, but then they just they end up also getting hot and heavy, man.
Real quick though, she finds the newspaper clipping, and we sort of learn that there was a house that burnt down on the same spot where Bill built his house, but he built the house around the original fireplace that was in this house that built down, which is kind of interesting.
Primary mistake, man.
Probably not a lot of people, first idea when they're building a house. But anyway, so that's real quick. And like you said, they get back to the hanky panky. They get on a table. Claire gets on Todd, rips her skirt off. We get of course, there's a tit scene.
It's a 90s horror movie after all.
Yeah. But then while this is happening, they introduced that wasp in the glass case. It starts shaking at first, and then eventually the glass on it shatters, and this like wasp comes to life. It stings Dana, and she runs off. Todd tries to kill it. Yeah.
This is the scene I was talking about in general. Like,
okay. Oh man, yeah.
Dude, like, this is like a nightmare of mine, man. Like, like, because like you said, like, the thing just it comes back to life. It stings Dana, and then Todd, trying to be fucking macho man Randy Savage over here, he like grabs a like the something to smash it with, and he's like, like, he looks like he's like intent on trying to get it, and he tries to smash it, but it's
unfazed. Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah, it does nothing. And then to top it off even further, the wasp ends up fucking flying right into his goddamn ear.
My god.
And there's like that shot of it crawling into his ear. And that is the nightmare moment, man. Like, it, like, yeah. And then, like, the actor does like he's like he starts like writhing around and screaming, and like there's this, like, Dana basically at this point had ran off and gotten the parents. And so Bill and Claire come bursting in, they hold him down, and they like decide to try to drown the fucking wasp out of the ear or whatever.
Yeah.
And oh my god, this just, all of it is just so, this is like the gnarliest part of the movie to me, because it's like there's, not only the wasp going in, but then there's the shot of them like extracting the bug out of his ear, and you're just like, it's like kind of bloody and shit. And you're like, what was it doing in there, man?
the only part of this scene that bugged me was the continuity of the scene, because it's a regular sized, real looking wasp when it flies into his ear, which, oh my god, yes, that is a childhood fear come true. It makes me think of when I was a kid, my grandma's house, and she had earwigs, and my older sister would fuck with me and said, oh yeah, those things will crawl into your ear and eat your brain. And that was like a childhood fear of mine for years. But like you said, they drown it out. Bill grabs like a pair of pliers to yank it out. When they yank it out, it's like 9 times bigger.
I know. They definitely like the model was way huge. It's fucking ridiculous, but
it is gnarly, dude.
Just what? Nightmare stuff. Like, they did a good job with that, if you ask me. But then there's like right off of that, then you have this like really weird like Claire scene where like, you know,
Oh,
presumably
yeah.
things have kind of calmed down, and Claire's just like, you know, in bed talking to Bill, being like, I don't like that girl. Todd can do so much better,
Yeah.
and like all this shit.
He's
and you're
no
just like,
good for him.
yeah, you're just like, what the fuck, lady? Like,
yeah. And then Bill, you know, has this weird dream.
oh yeah,
So I didn't, you know how you mentioned when he goes into the shed for the first time, there's like a voice saying like, you're gonna burn.
yeah.
I didn't hear that, but it happens again here. And this is another kind of somewhat gnarly scene in the movie. Is like he has this dream where there's like a little child, and the little child drives like railroad spikes through his feet. And you're like, what
dude.
the fuck?
Yeah, dude, it was definitely like another kind of like, oh, that fucking like nah, but yeah, like luckily Bill like wakes up and then, you know, you find out it was another dream and shit, but you're just like, dude, like back to back kind of like shock value scenes.
Right.
But then you have like a shot where it's you know, it's like morning, and they do this cool camera shot. If honestly,
It was cool.
It like kind of slowly rotates around the table, and you see all the characters like Jessica and Todd, and you know, they're all like, and Claire's there, and then they're all
everyone's
like,
there, yeah.
sort of, you know, like they all look sort of slumped over, or like tired, or you know, whatever. Bill like shows up all with a fat stack of pancakes, like, yo, breakfast, motherfuckers, and everybody's just like, I'm good, and different, like they all in different ways are just like, nah, I'm good, and they leave the table.
Yeah, Jessica said she was not feeling well, so that's why she leaves. Todd isn't hungry. Claire starts doing the dishes, and Jimmy wants to get fresh air. But yeah, I was reading that to do that, they cut a hole in the, which you could probably kind of guess, but they cut a hole in the kitchen table. And I was reading though that, however, instead of having like a dolly or something to spin it, that like someone was down there spinning it itself. So that's how they achieved that shot.
Nice. That's cool.
Then so that happens, and then we have Marla shows back up, you know, with the tea that she mentioned she was going to bring. But we have another kind of weird scene with the whole the whole Claire situation.
Yeah, dude.
Because she's starting to do the dishes, and we see, you know, Todd's outside shirtless with some, you know, sweat shorts on, shooting some hoops.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kind of like lustfully is like sort of staring at him and shit. And then like really promptly is like, I've got to go run some errands. And Bill, you know, offers to go with her, and she's like, I need to be alone. You're like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Marla has this great line where she shows up with the tea, and she's like, this whole family needs their chakras realigned.
Jeez. Dude, your chakras need to be realigned, brah. Yeah, just fucking wacky. And, you know, then it kind of like, you know, you have another Dollhouse scene where it's like, you know, Marla goes up to visit with Jessica and give her the tea. You see Jessica drinking it, and you know, she kind of brings up the Dollhouse, and like then she gets like
she brings up some of, like, you know, she mentions some of the things that have happened, and how she's scared of it, and she asks Marla if she believes her, and to her surprise, Marla's like, absolutely, yes, I do believe you, and we should move the Dollhouse. But her plans get thwarted though, because as she goes to she leans down to pick up the Dollhouse, and one of the windows like slams shut and end up cutting her across the cheek.
Yeah, dude, it's like wild. Like it's you know, it's like fighting back. And it's interesting because at this point, you know, like after that incident, you know, I think Marla ends up leaving to go back, you know, to the bookshop But
Yeah,
then you have this like,
because she tells Jessica to make a list of all the strange things it does, but also while Jessica's back is turned, she sneaks one of the little dolls and like slides it in her purse.
yeah, and then like right after she's gone, Jessica is seen. You can see her with her notepad, and like she goes up to the dollhouse, and I can't remember what she touches or whatever, but it shocks her.
The attic door.
Yeah, and then she like is like seen writing it down. It's just like, yeah, it's like a good idea. I mean, that was like probably the best advice in that situation. Just like start writing down all this weird shit so we know. But yeah, then Marla ends up going back to the bookshop and meets with Tobias, who's there, and that's like,
yeah, because she gives him the doll and he says, "I'll see what I can do." So it's kind of vague, but you're like, what's going on with this?
Yeah. And then you have another, well, it's really kind of like an extended weird Claire scene.
Yeah.
So like you have like Todd's still outside shooting hoops, and Claire presumably has just gotten back from the errand she was running.
Yeah.
And like the garage door just kind of opens by itself as she's pulling up. So you see Todd out there shooting hoops. She goes out there. She's all a little sweaty. He's a little he's been working out. They get kind of pretty close, and Todd just very like probably trying to be mature about the whole situation is sort of like, hey, let's shoot some hoops. Let's
bury the hatchet.
Yeah, bury the hatchet. That's what it was. And Claire kind of blows him off, and like to that angers Todd. He throws his basketball, and Claire goes into the house.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And at the end, like I said, it's like an extended weird Claire scene because it's like she goes upstairs. It's like breathing all hot and heavy. She's in the bathroom. She takes her fucking top off, and then starts like playing with herself.
Yeah, because she starts, she starts by touching her neck. She starts rubbing her tits, and then she puts her hands down her pants and starts playing with herself. And she's standing in front of the mirror while this is happening, and it's kind of a weird, uncomfortable scene.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, she's staring in the mirror, and then she envisions Todd behind her, and
dirty.
Yeah. But it ends up, it doesn't go to like a scene of her like envisioning them fucking, because Bill ends up, thank God, Bill ends up calling her name and tells her that he fixed the gas line. She grabs him, pulls him in the bedroom, and they start to get busy. But then she gets spooked out. She thinks she sees Todd again and gets spooked out, and mentions, that, it'd be nice to get out of the house. It like flash forward maybe like an hour or so, and they're getting ready to head out for dinner, and Bill pulls Todd aside to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, well, and they basically they're planning on leaving the kids with Todd and shit, and so it's like that classic sort of like I'm expecting you to stay out of trouble kind of thing.
Yeah, he even goes as far as to tell Todd that he doesn't think that he should see Dana anymore until he's a little more responsible. And Todd's like, "Oh yeah, she's history anyway. She's too much trouble." Yeah. You're like, And as soon as they leave, Todd's left to babysit. He runs in. Jimmy and Jessica are playing a game of I believe it's chess. Maybe it's checkers. It's one of the two.
Either way, Todd kiboshes that real fucking quick.
Yes, he does.
Dude, he just rolls in there and he's just like, all right, bedtime.
Yeah, what a fuck.
What a fuck. Like, classic situation, though. You've seen it so many times in movies, though, or in horror movies especially, with like, where it's just like that. It's like, all right, I may be the babysitter, but I got plans. And then, in a horror movie, I feel like that this situation's gonna spiral some way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he sends the kids up to bed, and like then you have what is it, like a oh yeah, that's right. You have a shot of Jimmy, like, I don't know, he's playing with some chemicals or something like that.
Yeah, he's like doing like a science experiment. Maybe it's like one of those like kids like chemistry set type deals.
Yeah.
But he seems to something like outside of the house catches his eye, looks out the window, and there's Zombie Dad. He's digging in his grave, and he ends up heading upstairs into Jimmy's room, but he is in worse condition this time, which is really cool.
Yeah. That is one of the cool things about that. Like they really like kind of further deteriorate his corpse as the movie goes on. Like I think you mentioned it earlier, but it does look really cool, honestly. Because
he's not like full blown, like there's like rotted here, but he's definitely, looks more like a zombified type deal.
Yeah.
They're on the, or he doesn't go into his room. I apologize. They're on the staircase while this is happening, and Zombie Dad tells Jimmy, or he accuses Jimmy. Oh no, he tells Jimmy that his mom has forgotten all about him, and that Bill is going to get Jimmy to do the same. Jimmy talks about how I'll never forget you, and Zombie Dad says that Bill has to be removed, and accuses Jimmy of not missing him. This is what I'm saying about how like the grief and the trauma of this, because you can very clearly tell how like visibly upset Jimmy is, and how he's emotional about this. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's like it's interesting because it's not even like the grotesque nature of his, like that he's seeing his zombie dad, and that's like makes him emotional or freaks him out. It's literally what like gets to him is that his dad is telling him that he he doesn't believe that he misses him and loves him, basically. And it's like it's a mind fuck,
That's like some toxic type shit that people do, what I mean?
Dude. He's like, it's gaslighting, right? Where it's like Jimmy's like sitting there being like, no, I do, I admit, like, and he's just like, no, you don't.
Oh, you don't.
I'm telling you, you don't. You like,
yeah. He even goes as far as to, you need to kill Bill, and when he says he doesn't want to, he's like, well, maybe you don't miss me. That's when he says that, where he's like, well, maybe you don't miss me then.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wants fucking Jimmy to Oh yeah, and then he the last thing he says, because Jimmy ends up running into his room and shutting the door, but Zombie Dad's in the room too, and he once again urges Jimmy to kill Bill, and tells him that you'll feel a whole lot better if you do.
Yeah, feel a whole lot better. So it's kind of a mind fucked scene.
Yes,
and then. But then you transferred to date night, basically, with Bill and Claire, and they're talking about like how they were going out. They I think Bill mentions that he says that he feels out of control or something like that.
They actually seem to be like enjoying themselves. Claire seems to be out of whatever like kind of weird like trance she was in with the whole Todd thing. They're laughing and smiling and just seem to be like really at a point where they're like alleviated of all the stress and tense situations that were happening at the house.
But that kind of quickly fades though, because Bill continues to tell Claire about his dreams, basically like what he was alluding to with Marla in the beginning, where like his dreams have come back or whatever. He tells her about the time he dreamed of the house burning or whatever, and then like he woke up and it had caught fire and shit. And
he talks about losing both of his parents when he was 10 years old to a house fire, which is fucking awful. He talks about how he had a dream about it beforehand, and that his parents played it off. And the very next day, when he was at school, the house burned down, killing them. Which fuck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That would be some trauma that you would carry for the rest of your life, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But he also mentions how he thinks that his dreams are telling him things, and that he thinks that his dreams are telling him that he's going to lose Claire, and he starts crying.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, I'd be spooked by him, if that had been the kind of history.
Yeah.
But so coming off of that, you kind of follow up back at the house. You find that Todd and Dana, they've been macking a little bit. Dana's obviously over, and they're gonna party like a couple of teens do, basically. Mm-hmm. But then you also have a scene with Jessica where she notices something going on with the little dollhouse. In the dollhouse, the fireplace catches on fire.
Yeah, because at first she's like, "I'm not afraid of you. Go ahead and do something." And
then it does something.
Yeah. She also writes that down. Rule number 2: it listens.
Oh yeah, it listens.
But yeah, Todd and Dana. We actually have an interesting sort of scene where Todd, is kind of complaining about everything that's going on, and Dana basically tells him to essentially to stop being a baby, and she talks about how she would die to have a family like his, and how he doesn't realize how good he has it.
Yeah. It kind of checks him a little bit, like, dude, just because things are rough doesn't mean that it's like the worst thing in the world. You're lucky.
Which is fair.
Yeah. And, so that kind of brings him back to, into like a sort of a, we'll say a friendly tone, because they end up macking, and then Todd runs off to go make fucking margaritas. It looks like. Yeah, it's some sort of drink involving a blender. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, he's like got some cups. He's like salting the rim, and like this is the thing though. So Dana turns on the fire. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is like, you think like, okay, like, it didn't turn on by itself this time. That's good. Right. Like in the dream sequence earlier, but as she's like, she kind of sits down by the fire, and as she does, and Todd's in the other room, she kind of like, I don't know, gets really like fixated for a second on it, and then like all of a sudden, like she starts like, I don't know, it's like, I can't, like, is it like, it's like blood on her, or is it like she's bleeding? Well, because she sees a vision of Jessica in the fireplace. Yeah. And it's Jessica in the fireplace saying what she had like just said a second ago to the dollhouse. But yeah, she notices blood on her arm, but it doesn't look like it was like her arm got cut. It's kind of weird. Yeah. But then out of the fucking blue, her hair just catches fire. Which again would be, I remember this clear as day, dude. I remember this one time. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember me and my mom, we had stopped at like a little corner store to get something. I don't remember if we must have been still living in Missouri. But anyway, we went to this little corner store, and when we went in, there was like a little brother and sister outside. We go into the corner store. This is a true story, by the way. We leave, we get in the car, and we start driving off. And as we're driving off, I look over, and the little boy walked up behind his sister and lit her hair on fire. Jeez, nah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, like, I mean, I think about, that's fucked up, man. I think about like, my luxurious locks, like, dude, if these caught fire, like, burn my fucking, like, that. Yeah, when I was working at the homeless shelter and doing homeless outreach, there was this girl that at first was staying at the shelter, and wanted to was trying to get clean, and ended up doing some outreach with us. And she had when she was one time, she
had like just got done like putting on her makeup and getting her hair ready, and had a bunch of hairspray in her hair. Yeah, and like went to use a torch to smoke, and lit her hair and her hands on fire, and had like third-degree burns on her wrists and all over her face. And she had to have all these like extensive. She had pictures of like what she looked like when she was in the hospital.
Damn.
She had to have all these like extensive surgeries to her face. You know, it was awful. But she was just one of the nicest people, and just had like, you know, some people in those situations tend to dwell on it, or tend to, you know, woe is me type deal. She was just like, you know, she was willing to talk about it. She didn't want anyone to feel bad for her. Like, she just had like one of the best like positive attitudes, which I don't know if I could be the same way if I had that happen to me. But anyway,
Dude, yeah.
Getting burned is fucking gnarly. And that's essentially exactly what happens, you know, because while her hair lights on fire, Todd has the blender on and doesn't hear, you know, her screaming and all this until it's way too late. He does actually use his brain, though, because he sees her on fire and he runs out and he dumps the contents of the blender onto her to put the fire out, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah. But you know, Dana is pretty fucked up. Like, they show her, and she's just, her face is fucked up, like her, you know, just gnarly looking. And but then it, you know, and it quickly cuts to, you know, like them, like some, you know, paramedics like loading her up, you know, into a car, or taking her out of the house and into like an ambulance, and Bill and Claire are there, and, you know, clearly she's being taken to the hospital. And like Todd, like out of nowhere, like, you know, he's like blames Bill, basically, like,
yeah,
like, he's like, you know, shouts at him about the gas lines, and I wish you never built this fucking house, and like,
right,
you know, it's just
and then just runs off. Yeah, he like throws a tantrum. This is your fault, you and your goddamn gaslight. Yeah, and he runs off.
You and your goddamn gaslight.
Yeah, it's a little extreme of a reaction to have. But you know, we see Bill hops in and with the ambulance to go with Dana, and we have a quick scene of Jessica looking at the dollhouse, you know, and saying, "You did this." And then then we have a weird cool scene too. Like I said, all the really cool scenes are based around the dollhouse, because she notices that one of the dolls is sort of lying in the fireplace, and when she goes to pick it up, she notices that her hand is coming out of the attic door. And realizes, she writes down rule number 3: my hand disappears into the fireplace.
Yeah, dude, it is bizarre. It, you know, it's kind of a cool shot with the hand, you know, coming out of the attic door while she's doing that. I don't know, it's kind of fun. But you know, after that, like, you kind of pick back up with Marla and Tobias, who are now trying to, I don't know, like,
real quick, there's a shot. Jimmy's in his room. He has like a catcher's mitt, like a catcher mask on. Excuse me, is like a baseball catcher. Like, he's like a mask on and a baseball bat. He's sort of staring at his closet. Claire comes in real quick and says goodnight again. She leaves, and then he barricades his closet shut with a chair, and says, "Please don't come out, please." And then Jessica wakes up from her sleep to see smoke coming from the attic door in the dollhouse, and then there's a bunch of books that are covered in blood on the steps.
Oh, that's right.
You're like, what is going on with this?
So strange.
And then we follow up with Tobias and Marla, but what are they doing?
Oh man, they're trying to, like, I don't know, summon the spirits on the doll or something like that, because they do this like the crazy ritual. They have the doll that Marla took from the dollhouse in like the middle of this like pentagram board or whatever. They do this like weird thing where they like poke a needle or something through this candle at one point, and it starts bleeding.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool shot, honestly. But then, like, all of a sudden, things start going a little haywire. Like, the doll at one point like turns and like sits up and like looks at them, and then like the room starts shaking and everything starts shaking on the shelves and shit.
Glass starts exploding.
Yeah. And then like like it gets bad enough that I think some shit ends up taking Marla out, like knocking her down at one point, but Tobias to end it all. Oh yeah.
A bookshelf, first a book falls and bashes her on the head, and then a bookshelf smashes down on her and kind of incapacitates her.
Yeah, and then Tobias just like takes action, grabs a knife, and like stabs it into the doll, and the doll starts bleeding. And then he pulls out attached to the blade like a it's like the bloody insect from earlier in the movie that flew into Todd's ear.
It was pretty wild.
It was fucking crazy. I was like, whoa, that was pretty cool.
It was cool because it was like poltergeist activity happening in their shop. Like you said, they had all these different glass bottles full of stuff that all just start fucking exploding. Yeah, it was a pretty cool scene. Tobias, he goes to tend to Marla, sort of, wakes her up out of her unconsciousness. And Marla tells Tobias to go to them. Go. And he leaves.
Yeah, well, and, like, shit's getting, like, weird, man. Like, the next few shots are kind of interesting. You see, like, Bill and Claire, who are clearly at odds at the moment. Like, Claire's, like, in bed. And Bill just kind of like goes off to change or whatever, but they don't really seem too interested necessarily in each other, which sucks because they were really getting along during that date. Yeah, because we learned that he talks about Dana being in a coma and how he'll tell Todd in the morning. But they do seem to be. It seems like like I said, when they were out at dinner, they were very happy. They're smiling, they were laughing, they were enjoying each other's company. But now they're back in the house, and it's almost like they basically despise each other in a sense. Yeah, they're very cold to each other. And then there's another shot of like Todd in his room, and he just looks like fucked up, man. He looks
Jimmy.
Like
Todd. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, cool, because it scrolls through like all of them. It's like that. It reminds me of the breakfast scene where it shows all of them in these different states. You know? And then it shows Jimmy, right after the Todd thing, where Jimmy's like, staring at the door still that's barricaded, and he's just sort of like kind of drifting in and out, like he's getting tired, Yeah, Bill has more nightmares too. Yeah. But this time they're a little more, and this time there's like some weird demons that are in it. Yeah. A house exploding. And then Jimmy's falling asleep. And then out of nowhere, the chair breaks. It goes flying away from the door, man. And then and a zombie dead.
Yeah, but then this time he's even way like more gnarly. Yeah. He starts to look maybe like what like a desiccated corpse that has been sitting in the ground for a while would actually look like. He just looks like tenfold gnarly than what he's looked previously in the movie, and he's also holding an axe. So you're like, this can't be good. You know what I mean?
Well, and he basically doesn't even like really like he interact with Jimmy. He just kind of like walks out of the room and goes, "It's payback time."
Yeah, I'm doing this for us, Jim.
And like as he's walking like down the hallway, he stops and like looks at Jimmy at one point and like kisses his axe, like Oh yeah. That was like such a funny shot. He's like, but like this causes Jimmy to like run into Bill and Claire's room, and
because the zombie's heading for their room, like
and they're not, but there's nothing in there, and that's like the crazy thing. So it's like it looks so fucking real, and so you're like, dude, Jimmy can't be making this shit up, right?
Right.
And you know, I guess maybe it's like back in his room or something like that. Like,
yeah, because Bill gets up and is like, I'll take care of this. And then back in their room, yeah, you know, it's another scene where he basically like belittles Jimmy for being a little girl, which is really fucked up. But then also backhand slaps him.
yeah, dude. And then like this, and then like you know, sorry. What?
That's I feel bad for cutting you off, but it's just another scene that was kind of powerful, in the sense of just this dynamic between them and how awful, you know, this parental figures being to this kid that just like had all these good memories of his dead father, and then now they're being tainted by, you know, this zombie version of him. I don't think that, you know, they meant, and I've said this before, where sometimes I just get weird. Movies will tug at me in an emotional way, like how I mentioned in what was the name of the movie? The vampire one with James Bond, the third.
Death by Temptation.
Thank you. How I mentioned there's a scene which is a great movie, go watch it. But there's a scene where like him and his friend get in this fight and he starts crying, and it really got to me. So it's just one of those weird things where every now and then, you know, obviously in Lion King, when Simba dies, people cry, you know what I mean? But I don't know, man, it's just a scene that got to me and really had me, you know, feeling some type of way. But yeah, so back to what we're talking about. I apologize.
No, you're good. Well, because like it's an interesting dynamic in the movie. It really is. And like, yeah, I think it's like it's interesting because, you know, like, I don't know. Anyway, it's just it is kind of like a powerful thing because you don't always particularly get to think about, you know, like how kids are affected by these situations. You don't get a kid's perspective a lot, featured in storylines like this sometimes, and so it's interesting for sure. Yeah,
because he accosts Jimmy. He calls him a little girl. He once again, he even has a line where he's like, "Oh, you and your new best friend Bill," just really being a dick. Like I said, he backhands him, and then Bill busts in, and Bill actually sees the zombie dad for himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the crazy shit is when Bill busts in and like zombie dad's there, or like with Bill and Jimmy, you know.
Which is cool because how you just mentioned, you're like, is Jimmy seeing this? Like, is this real? It's real.
It's real. And then there's like this like almost I mean, it's like it's serious, but like it's almost comical in a way where like the zombie dad, like Jimmy exits the room, and so Bill's in the room with, you know, the zombie dad, and he goes like, let's have a little powwow, and like you know, like I think like ends up like punching Bill in the tummy or something like that. Like he shows him like his rotting hand that has like an upside down crucifix carved into it.
That's
like,
right.
They're coming for you. Yeah, that's right. He's like, they're coming for you.
And
they're gonna eat your soul.
Oh yeah.
But like it's like some fucking shit's going down, you know, like this is not all right, man. Because what happens after that though? It's like somehow you end up with Bill in the garage after that, like
because Jimmy, you know, like we said, Bill comes in, sees the zombie, and even though Jimmy has kind of been like a little shit to him this whole time, he instantly is like, get out of here. Gets Jimmy out of the room, and you know, Jimmy obviously, you know, being frightened by this all, he's sort of like backing up out of the room. He backs into Claire. Claire sees the bruise on his face and jumps to the conclusion that Bill had hit him.
Yeah, that's right. And tells Bill to get the fuck out.
Yeah, she runs in and she doesn't see Zombie Dad. But she grabs Bill and is like, get the hell out of here, and locks him out of the house. And then she turns around and sees Zombie Dad holding Jimmy, and you're like, well, fuck,
Yeah.
and rightfully so, because at this point, there's like less than 20 minutes in the movie, so you're like, some shit needs to really start happening here.
Yeah, for real. But this is and that's where that's where the whole scene in the garage just kind of picks up again. Well, no, because in between that, even there's like a scene with the dollhouse in Jessica's room, I think, where it just like starts levitating and then spinning around.
That happens after the garage scene, actually.
Yeah, in the same general area. Because the garage scene's like Bill's like trapped in there, and then the car turns on and starts like leaking all of its exhaust into the closed garage,
which would fucking suck.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the dollhouse levitating is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. But one of the and then just to keep chunking along, there goes like all sorts of shit's going on now. So there's that whole stuff going on. Bill's trapped in the garage. The dollhouse is fucking going haywire, and then you have that scene in the by the fireplace with Jimmy and Zombie Dad and
first I think this is what you're talking about earlier when you mentioned seeing Todd again, and he looks really kind of not doing so well because Todd's in his room. He's listening to music, and the music seems to turn up really loud by itself. He rips the cord out. It's just a real quick scene. But so back to what you were saying.
You're right. And he's like, because it's also gonna fuck with his ear that was just damaged by that whole bee thing. You know what I mean?
But he seems to, when he falls down, he seems to like knock himself out. We'll get back to that. But like you said, so back to what you were saying, Zombie Dad has Jimmy and Claire. Their wrists seem to be bound, and they're sitting next to the fireplace.
Yeah, and it's just kind of it's an odd scene, he's like kind of doing the same things he was doing to Jimmy. He's like, you're telling Claire, I thought you loved me and shit. Does this like weird, he rubs his dead finger across her lips. I was like, bleh. And then threatens to it's like he picks up Jimmy and threatens to throw him in the fire or some shit.
He also has a really good line where he says, but Claire, we're going to the other side. And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
What the fuck does that mean, man?
Yeah.
And then, right after that, that's when you pick up with Todd a little bit again and shit. There's so many things happening. It kind of just, it's jumping from one character's misadventure to the next, it feels like, for a second here.
Yeah.
Because there's then you see this shot of you presume it's Dana in Todd's room because it's the curly hair and everything, and she's like, let's pick up where we left off and shit. And he's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then we jump back to, because like you said, it's one of those, and this happens a lot in the movies, and I feel like when this does happen in a movie, for the continuity of our discussions that we're having, sometimes it can be slightly frustrating where we're literally having to explain all these different scenes that are going on. But we pick up after that real quick scene, because like you said, she's like, let's pick up where we left off, and lifts one of her straps of her dress down. But at this point, Tobias has shown up to the house.
Yeah.
Opens up the garage, wakes up Bill. They try to enter the house, and there's an upside down cross on the door handle. And they end up getting in. They confront Zombie Dad, who at this point, like you said, is about to dangle Jimmy into the fire. But they get into it. They get into a tussle with Zombie Dad. And in a really actually pretty powerful scene, Jimmy gets the upper hand on his dad.
Yeah, dude, that's right. Well, because they bum rush him, and Zombie Dad picks up Tobias by the fucking throat or whatever, and just just tosses him, like it's fucking nothing. Tobias, like we said earlier, is a big dude.
He has some Michael Myers type strength.
Yeah, dude. But Jimmy, you're right. Jimmy gets the upper hand on him by grabbing one of the dolls, one of the doll, weird cloth dolls that we were talking about throughout this, and like
Mhm.
throws it in the fire.
Yeah.
And that's like, and that like immediately starts like takes down Zombie Dad, where he's like smoldering and smoking and like falls down behind the couch or whatever. It's pretty fucking cool. But it's
And then
also
just disappears.
yeah, but it's
Jimmy,
also like, well, you're right. Like it's kind of like, I don't know. It's just the whole Jimmy thing is really actually probably one of the most compelling storylines in this whole fucking movie. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm glad you agree. He has this great line too, where he picks up the doll because that's right. Because Tobias came back with it. Tobias had it wrapped up in a cloth,
Yeah.
and like you said, when he got manhandled by Zombie Dad, he dropped it, and Jimmy picks it up and looks at his dad and says, "Maggot brain, your history." But it's great, like like you said, it is one of the best like arcs of the whole movie. Because that had to have been hard for him. Here's his dad, but he's realizing that, sometimes be careful what you wish for, what I mean, type situations. So yeah, I thought it was really cool that he's the one that ends up, throwing the doll in and dispatching. I had to use it. One per episode.
Well,
But
and then like there's this like big scuffle and like where they say like they're trying to, we gotta get out of this house, we gotta get Todd, and then it takes you right back up to Todd's room where he's like reaching up and he like touches Dana's hair, and then it like falls off like all like like it's a wig or something, just falls off and reveals that like it's the bloody like burnt gnarled looking version that of Dana, and she basically like jumps on top of him, and I can't remember what she's like yelling about, but she's kind of like accosting
they're
him.
coming for you.
Yeah, that's right, they're coming for you. Oh my god, they're gonna eat his motherfucking soul too.
yeah, I guess so. But in a somewhat surprising scene, Claire comes in with the baseball bat, and once again, like earlier, she just Sammy Sosa's him and just or her, wham! And then as they're running out, she has a great line where she says, "I knew she was no good for you," or something like that. But yeah, God, so at this point, Jimmy, Todd and Claire are outside, and Bill and Tobias realize that they need to get Jessica too.
Yeah, and that like they were like run up to her room and Jessica's just fucking gone, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's when they discover her notepad with like the list of things that she's been writing down about the dollhouse, and then there's this photo of like presumably her or something with like her arm going into the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, oh shit, and that takes them back downstairs where, and this is like one of those things where like they had to go somewhere with this movie, and so like what it is like they go downstairs and they see that sort of visual of Jessica in the fire, like you saw in Bill's dream earlier, and just gung-ho, like Bill decides like, okay, I'm gonna go get her, and like jumps into the fireplace and is just fucking transported to some other like fucking like realm or some shit.
Yeah,
like it's fucking wild. It reminds me a little bit of like opening the cube in Hellraiser.
Yeah,
like you're like all of a sudden in
totally.
this like weird sinister other world, and like Tobias, I believe, follows through. He also jumps in because he's there for it.
Yeah, because like we said, Bill goes first and he sees Jessica like sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor, and in a circle around her are now they're life-sized, but they look just like the dolls. They seem to be bleeding from the chest and look like something has ripped out of them, and that's when Tobias hops through and tells them that they're in a place of evil and that the dolls are husks. And you're like, and then we just get this visual, kind of like you just said, very reminiscent Hellraiser, where we have all these weird demons. One of them has a scythe, one of them has a spear, one of them's a very cool looking devil-like winged creature. And you're like, why couldn't these been in the movie earlier? Why did they wait until
100.
the last 9 minutes of the movie?
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's like, man, if these were involved way more, like this movie would have been so much fucking cooler. Like it's like some cool costumes and makeup work, like honestly, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it's like, I don't know, it's like strange. Like they end up, like you said, they reveal all these characters, and then like Bill and Jessica end up going through this door that's like right behind them, leaving Tobias behind. Yeah,
because Tobias he like pulls out like a satchel of some sort of powder, some sort of dust, and creates like a protective spell. And Jessica's the one that's like, oh, you know, this is if we go through this door, this is our way out of here. So like you said, they head through, and Tobias is like, you guys go. You know what I mean? Like, you guys go to safety. Yeah.
Dude.
Ultimate sacrifice,
because they go through, and you know, you think for a second that Tobias's spell is gonna do just fine, but like the creatures approach, and then very shortly they seem to somehow breach his protective spell and like get him, you know, like one like gets him in the gut, and then like this like tentacle looking claw thing kind of wraps around him, and like, you know, needless to say, Tobias gets you know, killed basically.
Yeah, if there would have been way more of this, it would have been a lot better movie. You're 100% absolutely right.
Homie should have jumped to that fireplace way earlier on.
Because just that little like 3-minute sequence, like with the winged, horned, red devil-like creature and the other ones, like it's cool.
It makes you so intrigued as to what the fuck is actually going on,
or like where they're at. Because never even like we're about to wrap it up, but it's never explained.
No,
you know.
Like it's so wild because literally from that, like you basically like Bill and Jessica get a hold of the dollhouse back in the real world, and they're able to throw it in the fireplace, and you know, they come like booking it out of the house, and like as the dollhouse is what?
Because he sends Jessica out first.
Yeah.
But yeah, continue.
But like as the dollhouse is like catching fire and starts burning, then like, you know, you see this shot of like Bill jumping into the bed of the truck also, and like
oh my
the fucking house starts blowing up and catching fire and shit. And it is the cheesiest, corniest looking fucking CGI looking flames that they just enshroud around this house. Like it's wild, man. Like I was just like, what the fuck is happening here? Like,
dude, I thought that we were going to be able to like make it through a movie without a fucking explosion, but no,
man, no way. Like it goes on for a bit. Like there's like the explosion, and then there's like all these slow motion shots of different parts of the house blowing up and exploding into flame, and it's like you're just like, yeah, we get it, okay.
Yeah, it is so outlandish.
It's so overboard, dude. And then you get how much
of the budget did they spend on that? You know,
that's what I was wondering. I was like, this is all primarily shot in like one of two spots, basically one of two sets. It looked like throughout the movie. So they spent a bunch of money on these creatures that they barely showed, and they spent probably a ton of money blowing up the fucking house at the end.
That has to be my guess. Is that they probably like spent too much money on the explosion, and that's why like the demons and stuff weren't in the movie as much.
I bet
that's the only assumption I can come to.
Well, and there's that like one of the final like shots that you ever get with one of the demons is like, you know, amongst the flames as a backdrop, you see one of them like like, you know, like, and it's just like so corny. It's just wild, man. And then like the final shot is just the dollhouse on fire, and then it just like cuts to credits, and you're just like, well, what?
Yeah,
There's
because
so much random shit that happened in this movie.
there's just so many questions. Because, like you said, it's Amityville is never mentioned.
No.
It has nothing to do with the actual Amityville house. Like in some of the other sequels that I watched recently, like there's one with the clock that was brought from the Amityville house.
Yeah.
There's one with a mirror that was brought from the Amityville house. They never talk about where the dollhouse came from. So I guess you could maybe lead to believe that maybe it did too. I don't know. But the only tie is that the house that originally burnt down, they built their house around that fireplace, but it never explains like anything about the events of the first house that burned down, like why, how. So it just leaves you with so many fucking questions.
Dude, 100%. Like it's like, and it's one of those like, because the movie's so subpar and it's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. There's just so many like things that happen in it. Like all these questions, you just sort of like, it leaves you a little dissatisfied because you're just like, what? Like what? I'm like, I don't want to have to follow up on this. Like, you know what I mean? I wish this would have just like answered the questions that it presented in this fucking movie, rather than being like, yeah, now there's this like weird demon realm that somehow there was access to, and yeah, like zombie dad, what the fuck was up with that whole thing? Like the zombie dad thing honestly reminded me of the movie House.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of thing, like where like, you know, like the zombie comes back and like comes after the guy in the end.
Good
I mean,
point.
to an extent, like the storyline built around Jimmy and his dad in this movie is shockingly, like we've been saying, shockingly compelling. But
Totally.
like, yeah, it's just it like I feel like this movie kind of took like bits and pieces from other things, lived off of it like really thrived off the name Amityville, and it just was just like something. It was just, I don't know, like it was weird. It was like a strange random movie.
But yeah, like I said, it could have just been any other horror movie.
Yeah.
And just the fact that they waited until the last 10 minutes of the movie to introduce the fireplace as a portal to another realm thing, like why, like, oh my god,
So random.
but
yeah, man.
And like you said, you called it though, because I remember when we were talking about doing this movie, you were like, oh yeah, because all these different, you know, Amityville movies got plopped on Shudder, and you're like, yeah, I was looking through the years and noticed that, you know, this is the latest one, so it's probably the fucking worst. You hit the nail on the head, my good friend.
It does, you know, sometimes shake down that way, I feel like. But, well, as always, we have to find a rating for this movie, our own personal Rotten Tomatoes, so to speak. But
so I'm gonna probably give this one like one of the harshest ratings ever given. It's gonna be rated probably worse than even like two movies that we actually name drop quite a lot, but it's gonna get a worse rating than Blood Beat, and it's gonna get a worse rating than Sledgehammer. I give it 1.5 creepy stepson
oh no.
stepson sex situation out of 10. It's just so weird.
It's so weird, dude. That vibe was so fucking weird in this movie. I agree with that, dude. I'm also giving it a harsh rating. I was thinking about this one at work today. I was like, what the fuck am I gonna say about this movie? Like, I'm gonna give it like, you know, like you gave it 1.5. I'm gonna be a little more graceful, I guess, and just give it a solid 2 out of 10.
Okay.
But it's 2 out of 10 shrinking than ginormous wasps in the ear.
God damn it, yeah, because it's like literally like just a real wasp. Oh my god,
I kept thinking about that the entire time after you mentioned it. I was like, oh my god, dude, it's so true. It's like a little tiny regular wasp, but then they pull out this like massive fucking thing.
Like, why couldn't it have just been that size the whole time? And not only would it have made the scene a little more like have more stakes to it,
dude,
because otherwise just like, wow, a wasp, like you're gonna really go like get his parents because of a wasp, like Yeah, it's so
It's so
bizarre.
ridiculous. This movie was just so fucking funky. It was something else, man. I'm glad we watched like one of them at least for the pod, because
Oh,
like
yeah.
you mentioned, like they dumped like three at least onto Shudder, or maybe four. I can't remember, but like
It was four, yeah.
it was just like all these Amityville movies, and you just looking at them, it was just like one of these has to be worth talking about. Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm very this one was a doozy. I don't think I'm gonna find myself watching Dollhouse anytime soon, but I do want to check out. I was thinking about doing this. I kind of wanted to watch. I kind of want to watch all the ones leading up to this one. You know, like the '89 and the 1992 movie that came out right before this one, just to see how they are. You watched them? Would you say?
I watched two of them. I still need to watch the one from '89, but I watched It's About Time, which is like I said, has to do with the clock, and then like Amityville, like Generations, I want to say.
Okay.
And that's one with a mirror, and they're all right.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, out of the ones that you've watched, then that are on Shudder right now, like how do you like? Is this one like bottom of the barrel out of the ones you've watched?
Yeah, because the other ones, they at least had more of an interesting idea that like was followed through with the movie, and had some pretty cool death scenes and some things going on. Where this one was pretty much the opposite. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably, and you know how I mentioned at the top of the podcast how it wasn't another 9 years until the reboot. It's probably due to how awful this movie was, and now they're probably like, wow, like I don't really think there's going to be much interest if we make another one. You know what I mean?
Just sort of killed the good name. Could you imagine if in the Ryan Reynolds reboot at the end of the movie he jumps through a fireplace and there's all of a sudden this demonic realm?
Oh my god.
Fucking epic. All right, well folks, episode 59 in the books. We got a big 60 coming right up.
Yes, we do.
We're gonna have to figure out a juicy movie to talk about for 60.
Totally.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, Bowie's no longer a guest star. He left, but I can hear him scratching at the door, so I know he has to pee. He's a faithful lad. Fitz, as always, my friend, I can't, like, this movie was just, watching it was like super fun in a way, because it was like, I know we're gonna laugh about this movie, like, while talking about it. And so that's always something that's like in the back of my head with these, is like, like, are we gonna have a fun time tearing into this? And I as always, just, this was a fucking great one. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you shedding light on that actual relationship and dynamic with the Jimmy character, because that is actually, like we've talked about, it was kind of interesting, and so it was cool getting like a certain perspective off of that. So
You're welcome.
Kudos. But either way, we say it almost every podcast. What do they got to do, Fitz?
Just go watch horror. You know what I mean?
You fucking know it. You dogs.
Yes.
Horror it up. You fucking dogs. All right, we'll leave it there. We'll see you at 60.